So here we are with the man behind Casca Jiu-Jitsu, Chris Reed. How are we doing?
Hello, I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm all good. And now the current question in everyone's mind, how are you surviving quarantine? How are you getting on?
I'm doing okay. I mean, I'm definitely missing just being able to go outside whenever I want to, but thankfully I invested in this before before it all happened. So I think that's the kind of thing that's keeping me sane, just keeping my fitness up and doing as much as I can.
Now,
What about you?
for those on audio only, I'll leave it to your imagination what Chris was pointing at,
Oh,
but for those who are...
oh, that's
it
so funny. I thought everybody would have have the video. Audio only.
is
I've
a
got
squat
a
rack.
weight in my house, yeah, squat rack in my house, and a pull-up bar. So that's what I'm doing to stay sane during this time, basically.
It kind of kills the fun when you explain it. To leave it to people's
I know,
imagination.
sorry, man.
But yeah, I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. Training wise, it's sort of taking a bit of a step back, as you'd imagine.
Yeah,
But podcasting is certainly picking up that gap quite happily.
yeah. What a great idea! It's the perfect time to pursue something like that. Um, I mean, people have essentially more free time than they've had in a long time, I think. So it's a good time to pursue that kind of like passion project or something you've been putting off.
Oh, 100%. And especially now, the people you'd want to get on, much like yourself, have now got this free time. It's just as
Thank you, man.
worlds collide. Absolutely perfect. So, a few things I want to get you on for. So, Casca Jiu Jitsu, talk to me about where that came from.
Well, I wanted to start my own business since I was a teenager, basically. And then when I found Jiu-Jitsu, I think okay, it was 2 years ago that I found Jiu-Jitsu now, I saw straight away it was something that I could really get into and be passionate about. And, we're just talking about passion projects. That was mine. I saw kind of straight away it was something that I really, really wanted to get into. And it just went from there, really. I thought maybe there would be space in the market for something that was a little bit more understated than some of those kind of like crazy out there designs, but still with that pop of color to give it some personality. So to be honest, I just started designing things, just looking at how to come up with like a clothing collection that, clothing design, that kind of thing. And it just went from there. And it just seemed like a really natural fit for me because I was, went to jiu-jitsu once or twice and I was absolutely hooked. And I knew that it was something that I wanted to do kind of long term. And yeah, it just developed from there, just spotted the opening and went to fill it with something.
So, take us back a bit. What's your background then? Because obviously, the different elements in this whole process of obviously training, but then it's
Yeah,
the getting it on paper, getting the actual physical product, and all this other side
yeah,
of the business side. What's your background then?
So marketing is my profession. I have a full-time job as well. I do the marketing for a company that makes extremely interesting kind of like ocean safety gear. So a natural fit for the jiu-jitsu world too. But so yeah, I did business and Spanish at university. I wanted to be a drug lord at that time. But then basically it just went from there. In
Narcos
terms of the
Jiu-Jitsu.
design, everything like that. Sorry?
Narcos Jiu-Jitsu.
Uh, exactly.
Sorry, carry on.
In terms of design, I don't have any experience or anything like that. In that, I just did some reading. I think we're living in a time where you can literally learn anything using the internet. So I just found a few articles. I looked at things like kind of like color theory and things like that, looking at what fits together and that kind of thing, and just finding out the kind of stuff that I like as well. And I just had a crack at it. Basically, that's one of the things where um, I just I'm one of those people where I don't think that you need like a formal education in everything if you want to give it a go. I think definitely you can sort of learn on the job quite quickly and easily now, especially like I said with the internet, everything like that. And so yeah, it was just a case of like reading up and learning as much as I could. I know some people who are involved in that kind of industry, so I spoke to them. But the main thing was I just really decided that I wanted to give it a go, and I thought like I'm so passionate about it. Hopefully that can like drive it through.
I mean, this is a huge part of these kind of people wanting to start these projects and get into starting businesses and this kind of thing. Because a lot of the behind the scenes people don't appreciate is all the sort of self-doubt side. What do I need? What's this and the other? But to just go for it and really have that kind of follow that motivation, follow that passion and really stick with it. it takes a lot to do, and the fact it's come out as well as it has, and it still continues to grow. More credit to you with all that.
Yeah, thanks.
There's one element to it I really wanted to pick your brain about, because on on the Casca page, you've got a lot of articles. Now, I find that quite an interesting change of pace and things, because whereas most places are specifically apparel or separately articles, whatever else, how come you wanted to integrate that with your brand?
I think it's an important part of brand building and thinking of the clothes you wear as being part of a particular lifestyle. But the other thing that it does, what I want to do is just help people to develop that kind of mindset that's going to keep them doing jiu-jitsu for as long as they can. And I think like where I'm really passionate about it, I think one of the ways that I can give value to people who read it or to kind of give back to the community a little bit is by writing the articles. And the other thing is I just really enjoy writing them. I think another thing that I'm very interested in is the psychological side of sport, and I think that's particularly important in kind of like jiu-jitsu and MMA because there's so much in your mind. You know, you can defeat yourself basically even well before you get submitted or knocked out or whatever. So I think where I think it's so important, it's just an easy and fun way for me to kind of like give something back to the community a little bit.
Definitely, that's something that really resonated with me, that extra bit of substance to it and a bit more of a... I'm a bit biased because I've got an article on there. Shout out to Dan Lester, Mental Health and Constructive Comparison, but that's perfectly fine, that's irrelevant.
Yeah, it's not relevant. Right. No, I really enjoyed reading that, man. It's an interesting take.
But again, it's more of the sort of same concept of the mental battles with yourself, because I certainly struggle with that myself in competitions. I mean, my first competition, I was an absolute mess. And the more recent ones, I'm doing flying triangles, just having fun with it. I mean, that transition, I'm the same person. But this, again, goes back to the mentality and your experiences. So what's your jiu-jitsu journey been like so far? Talk us through how that all started.
So I'm a blue belt. I've been doing it for, I think we're coming up to 2 years, maybe just over 2 years. I started it in London, did the odd class in London, but then I ended up leaving there due to some personal circumstances. And I really picked it up when I moved home to the Isle of Wight. I had a lot of free time there. And I think basically what I did, I'm a smaller guy, I'm like 5'9", I'm about 100 and, I don't know what I'm in pounds, but I was about 70 kilos at that time, and I was like, how can I learn how to defend myself against somebody that's much bigger than me? And jiu-jitsu was the thing that came up when I did that, and then it just went from there. I found a club. I was really, really surprised to find a good club on the Isle of Wight. I'm going to give a shout out to Isle of Wight BJJ as well. That's where I got most of my training done. And I started to go 3-4 times a week, and I just saw the improvements come. I absolutely loved it. I haven't done too much competing. I've done some like inter-clubs and that kind of stuff, but I think one of the things that being away from jiu-jitsu at the moment has allowed me to do is let me kind of get my priorities straight, and I'm kind of like, now I've reached blue belt, I really want to start getting some more competition experience and really like testing how good I am versus someone else who really, really actually wants to submit me or beat me. So we'll have to see how that turns out. But it's been a super fun journey. I think just right from the off, I've seen the value in it and how much it's given me, like you said in your article, in terms of like mental health, physical health. And I can't really ever see myself not doing it. It's just super fun.
I mean, that is definitely something I try to explain to people, because when you try and explain jiu-jitsu to people who don't train, they see it as, oh, you're just rolling on the floor, it hurts, why would you do it to yourself? I said, no, it's a different world, it's just fun, it's just like play fight with your mates.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if you had like a brother or a sister that you used to wrestle with when you're a kid, that's what I found initially. I mean, me and my brother always used to kind of play fight and stuff like that. And it just felt like doing that, except I actually knew what I was doing in the end. So, I absolutely love it, honestly. It's my favourite hobby. I always tell people, like, it's my favourite hobby that I've ever done. I've done quite a few bits and pieces of sports and things like that. I've always been, like, a sporty person, I guess, and, like, into fitness and stuff like that. But there's something different about jiu-jitsu for me where I'm just super passionate about it. It's awesome.
So, Regards of starting the business in itself, because that's where sort of we start investing your own time into it and your own money into it. What sort of struggles have you found with that, and what things have you learned from since you started? Like,
oh god, there's so many lessons. I think even learning the process of designing and like getting creative and stuff, and actually a bit more of the boring side, the whole like garment tech. So obviously it has to be suitable for jiu-jitsu. It's got to be like there's a degree of like skin tightness you have to have. It's got to wick sweat, that kind of stuff. So even from the technical side and learning about what goes into making one of these things that will last and be a good product, that's super important. But in terms of business lessons, I think a really interesting one is that it's really, really important to have the passion for what you're doing, but you need to be kind of like passionately dispassionate. Because in the beginning, I was living every single minute of what I was doing. You know, when it's going well, I'm super happy, I'm completely elated. And when you have this kind of like natural up and downs, you know, when it's not going so well, that really affected me too. So I think I've tried to, it's a different kind of mental toughness essentially, just like persevering and being consistent even when you can't always see immediately the value of what you're doing. So I think that's something that it's taught me. And then just essentially like business lessons and actually knowing that I can market something, because all the previous jobs I've had working with somebody else, therefore established, sorry about that. I've got a reminder to actually have this podcast with you going off. Sorry. So I think the main, I might have to edit this a little bit because that's completely made me lose my thread.
That's all good.
But I think, the key thing from the perspective of what it's taught me, oh my goodness, man, that's completely distracted me. Hang on one sec.
So good.
I think, with what it's taught me in terms of like living it, you know, like I need to be passionately dispassionate about it. So when it's going well at the beginning, I was super, super happy, but I was really affected when it wasn't going so well. And I think there's natural up and downs to every part of a business. You know, it's not literally like all a straight line up. 1 minute's going well, next minute's going bad. There's all kinds of challenges that you have to overcome. And I think that's something that I'm developing. It's like a different kind of mental strength to be able to persevere and be persistent and consistent, even when you're not immediately seeing the value of what you're doing. So, for example, the first couple of blogs that I wrote, nobody really read them. But now, you know, that I can see, because I've kept doing them and I've kept writing more things, I'm starting to get like more shares, more eyes on them, and I'm hoping that will continue, basically. So I think I'm really glad that I've done it, just because it put me so far out of my comfort zone. And that in itself is like the biggest lesson, maybe, I think.
And that is a huge part of all of this, because when you appreciate what it is, not just on the face value, it is your project, this is what you believe in, this is what you're putting out to the world. Yeah. And on top of that, I mean, it's almost like a form of art in a sense. This is what your image is in your head, and this is how you physically present it. And then the way it's received and how you can then process all this information and the whole thing. I mean, because it's a very personal thing. It's very honest. And then if it isn't getting received the way you feel it should be deserved to be received, it's very personal. Then to affect you're emotionally invested in this. Is everything. Yeah, definitely. And then it becomes like, processing from there onwards.
Absolutely. I think that's kind of what I'm driving at. It's like you need to be emotionally invested in it to a point, but I think beyond a certain level, you need to have that kind of attitude where, you know, you enjoy doing it, and that's all that matters. Because that will naturally come across in the things that you put out, in the articles that you write, in the content that you create, and in the products that you make. That will be what keeps people coming back to buy from you. But if you go too far the other way and you're living every minute of it like I was, especially at the beginning, I think it can be very hard mentally to keep going, exactly like you say, when something's not received the way that you want. Because going back to your article, you know, the highlight reel of social media, you only see the good of what everyone's doing. You don't see the work and the sweat and the tears and everything that's gone into it behind the scenes. And I think when you're comparing yourself to others, and you see, in the same way that you see people on social media that are where you want to be, you see successful business people and people that are, you know, having that success. And you're like, you know, what are they doing that I'm not doing? And it's, you know, it can knock you off your game a little bit. But same as anything, you know, you practice. What you get good at are the things you practice. So I think just, you know, even practicing in this sense, like writing content and all of that kind of stuff, it's been a huge help to me. It's been a help to me in my career, outside of what I'm doing. But one day I would like to have it be the only thing that I do. I would love that. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, that's the dream as well. And on top of everything else, a huge reason I wanted to get you on is that side of things, because there's so many layers to it all. The complexity of starting this business, because there's more to it. It's not just a face value thing. It's the inspiration behind that. It's the motivation to drive it and also build it, and the trials and tribulations along the way of things. Because, you know, with anything, like social media in general and everyone's opinions and everything. Say if you need to go shopping and everyone gives you an opinion on what not to buy, you already gone in.
Yeah.
You don't know where to even begin.
Exactly.
But then you don't know what you want, and then it's that a lot of social media gets lost in translation of what the priority is of what you're doing it for, your motivational factors. Who is it for? Is it for you? Is it for everyone else? Is it to be received, or is it for your own self-achievement? And that kind of honesty can really define how you chase your goals and how you develop with them. And also how you feel about everything how it goes. Because, you know, is it like on Instagram the reason you want to do the thing you've done? Or is it you want to physically do it and not tell anyone? I mean...
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm interested in your kind of story, like, from the MMA side of things. I'd like to know a bit more about how you got your journey in that, because obviously, like, one of the reasons why we picked you for Casca is because I could see there's the right kind of attitude coming through there in terms of you're consistent, you don't give up, you know, you can see that in the posts that you make, and that was one of the things where we thought, like, this guy could be a good fit. But I want to know a bit more about your story coming up to now and how you started in MMA, that kind of thing too, if you wouldn't mind telling me a little bit.
Get comfy, it's going to be a while. So, do you remember when there was a thing called the Ice Bucket Challenge?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
That's when I started MMA. So, it was... my brother went to a fitness class at one of the MMA gyms, because I never really knew about MMA. I just sort of... You see it like the UFC, and you see like the highlights and stuff, but you never really consider putting two together of how to get there. So, I sort of knew it existed, but didn't give it much thought. So I was doing the fitness classes. I was still smoking at this point. I'm not really that fit, so I just gave it a crack. Showed up late to one of the classes. Ended up buying all the sparring gear and getting stuck in for the MMA the following session. And, it was a world of its own. I couldn't even tell you what was going through my mind when it was happening. Yeah. But I thought, okay, I've already got the gear. And, you know, I'll get stuck in. And over time, the timetable kept changing, so there'd be more MMA classes on. And progressively I'll get more stuck in. But again, I'm quite lanky, I'm 6'2", I'm not that strong. So when it came to getting more technical with it, that's what really sort of sped up my development in it. Because, I don't know, it was a tricky one. Because when training in that place over in Bedford, which is where I live, the sparring itself, it was a lot of quote-unquote technical sparring. It wasn't that many hard rounds. So whenever I got hit properly, like a hard training... It would really, like, I don't know, disorient. I don't know. It would knock me back more than it would. Whereas since I've then moved to a gym in Northampton, which is about 45 minutes down the road from me, with a lot of professionals, training there, the intensity is a lot more. But because of that ceiling of, I don't know, you get guys in the UFC, guys at Bellator, sort of quite big names. It gets a bit more, okay, there's actually a way to get there. There's a lot more ways along that journey. And I've just skipped like 3 years in this, but there's not really a lot going on in that. There's a lot of inconsistencies. But again, with that, it's all been... I don't know, what's the thing? Once you get cauliflower ears, you've got to stick with it, otherwise you're ugly and can't fight. It's something like that, I think.
You're ugly, you can't fight.
So, and on top of everything else, I've just always really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the problem solving of it, because where I've done like boxing and other martial arts and such, it's been very much repetition. So, okay, it's just that, then what? But then, okay, how do you deal with that? Okay, you just, bite down your
Yeah.
gum shield and get on with it. So
Yeah.
it's not really, I don't like that answer. And then training in jiu-jitsu, because I kind of fell in love with the gi for quite a while.
Okay.
Because it's just one of those things, because of the complexity. Because I remember when I first started training, like the intricacies of like certain open guards, like De La Riva and spiders and all that kind of stuff. You'd always think, oh, that's not for me. That's not anything I can't understand. But then over time, doing it more and just rolling and trying new stuff, like I'd be that white belt trying to berimbolo everyone.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
And I just love it. I love the creativity side of it. But adversity than that, I'd always feel MMA was also something I wanted to pursue. And it's almost the polar opposite of that, because as much as the spinny leg locks are all a bit of fun and all that kind of stuff, it's not overly applicable until you get to a certain skill level. And it was always been a bit of a mental battle when it comes to fighting and training, because I don't know, I think it's getting used to getting hit hard and then realizing if you actually hurt or not. Because when it comes to like inner clubs and stuff, I never really got hit hard. I remember my first amateur fight. Oh god, it was horrible. I was so hungry. I just so the nerves on the day. I didn't eat that much, so when it came to getting in the cage, I was starving, absolutely dying.
Right.
And the guy I was against,
mate,
he was pretty strong. I mean, we're about similar sort of build and stuff. I mean, spoiler, little plug for this. On Monday, we're having a breakdown of that first fight with him on a Skype, so that's going to be interesting.
Nice.
But
Oh, wicked. Okay, I'll check.
So, shameless plug. So yeah, we talk.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so in that fight, it went best part of 3 rounds, and it was first round I get dropped like a like a shit ton of bricks, and I just about get saved by the bell. Second round I get the mount, I get a triangle, which keeps me up at night to this day because it was beyond like on, but he was invincible and does not tap. I don't know why, I don't know how.
Wow.
And the third round, the adrenaline. The adrenaline, I died. Sorry, carry on. I can't hit. It's a bit of a delay.
Oh no! I was just going to say on that thing where you think you've got something like absolutely deadlocked and it doesn't work. It's like, how is this guy still moving? There's something different about competition. Like, I think where you want it a little bit more, people are willing to take those risks. But I found that as well. Like the first comp that I did, one of these like interclubs. And I remember literally the first few minutes, it was a gi fight, and I was still a white belt, and I had absolutely no idea really of how to like take someone down. So I was just getting absolutely yanked about basically. I was like, oh my god, okay, this is definitely a step up from training in the gym. And it took me a little minute to adjust to that, but ended up getting to the back and kind of sinking in RNC, but I was absolutely pulling with every single and squeezing with everything that I had, and it took some time for the guy to tap, and maybe partially that's because I was a spazzy white belt, but I'm still like, wow, should have tapped quicker. But I know what you mean when you say like something's on and it just doesn't do the business on the day. It's soul destroying.
Oh, don't get me started. I had him dead to rights in that triangle. And like triangles, even to this day, are like something I'll always do, and I'm always like my bread and butter.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things. So bear in mind, the second round, I'm depleted, I'm dead, and then I've got this triangle. I thought I had it. Everything.
Yeah.
And on top of that, my cardio was shot. My adrenaline dump, everything. It was hell. So third round, I'm basically like, okay, if I can survive, I'll be all right. But no, I just sort of. I went for just a sloppy shoot and then ended up fighting an anaconda for most of the round, and then just got a sloppy got my back caught there. But even then, like I was just spent like everything. Like afterwards, this gets a bit dark. So after in the changing room, funny spell. So the walk from the cage to the changing room, my adrenaline started wearing off and my shin started really, really hurting. So I'm like, okay, I'm fine. And then like I started limping and hobbling away. And what was it? God. I'm in the changing room. I'm just a blubbering mess. The rest of it, I'm throwing up from like exhaustion and stuff. And oh my god, I was in a bad way. I was depressed for ages because of that. Because as you well know, that amateur fight that no one's ever seen is the most important thing in the world.
Yeah, definitely. The first one as well. It's something about the first one. You want to win it so bad. I completely get that.
I mean,
I think when you can Oh, go on.
So I mean, in the sense of like, it's the biggest thing in the world, like to everyone, like it's such a significant thing. Oh wait, it's not.
Yeah.
It's only to me in my world.
Exactly. Yeah. No, 100%. It's one of those things that's. I think as you compete more, you learn to take that pressure off yourself a little bit. But the initial one, it's like I have to win. I'm going to win. This is everything to me. All my training and stuff like that. Like you're treating it like you're a UFC fighter or like a ADCC trial or something like that. And it's just like, you're going to get a plastic medal. No one's going to remember this in 10 minutes. So don't worry about it and just do your best. I think that's the main thing, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's certain levels of, you've got to give it respect for what it is, the risk of putting into it. But on top of everything else, so at that point when I had my debut, I think I was training about 3 and a bit years, just kind of like first couple inconsistently, then afterwards taking it quite seriously. Because the problem I really had was I was training with like professionals and like really high level amateurs. Yeah. But I was doing that constructive comparison thing of like I was trying to give myself that same results without their experience as such. So then I'm expecting to then do better. I'm expecting to smash this and be the man.
Yeah.
But when it didn't happen, I was thinking, it's almost like imposter syndrome. I'm thinking, am I got this MMA bravado of all this kind of stuff? Yeah. Am I not that that person? Which is it's a funny one because in the modern age of amateurs acting like professionals on social media, my response is always okay boomer because it's the modern age of social media. You've got to get yourself out there.
Yeah.
So that fight really knocked my confidence back. It took me a while to even I was back in the gym the Monday, but oh god, they all sort of roasted me and stuff to try and get me over it a bit quicker. But in saying that, as much as it stung, as much as I was devastated, I dealt with it. It was easier to sort of, I don't know, squeeze it out whilst it's there, then get on with it afterwards. But, so fast forward, I think about a year and a half. I then fight again. I get a fight booked. I'm training, so the camp's completely changed. So nutrition, I've got a nutritionist. Training wise, I'm training more. I've got double sessions during the week. So instead of doing because I was in a relationship at my first fight, and I was training, I think, Monday through to Thursday in the evenings, and then Friday mornings, and that was kind of my training, the occasional weekend stuff. So it wasn't it wasn't a little, but it wasn't enough as such, and also a bit of a tasting point. Whereas the second fight, here I am, I'm taking everything seriously. I've got a strength coach, I've got a nutritionist coach, I've got training, a lot more structure, I'm getting a lot more sparring and all this stuff. I feel like a well-oiled machine. Everything's going fantastic. Training's going great. I go in the fight, everything, nerves, everything. I feel like, I'm ready to go. No problem at all. I'm there, pouring out my jabs and stuff, feeling them out, no dramas at all. And then I wake up. It turns out I got caught with an absolute bomb out of nowhere.
Oh, I saw it. I think I saw this one. I think we had sponsored you by then. I think so.
And that's the thing I'll get onto as well, because when it came to that fight, not only did I have the pressure of myself on that, from having, okay, I've had this big loss and this has really knocked me back. If I go again, I don't know what's going to happen to me. I then pick up a few sponsors. I then have this almost that same, I said about the fighter persona, that kind of image, has sort of been amplified a bit. Mm-hmm. So then to come up short on that kind of bigger occasion almost. In the same world it is, an amateur fight that maybe tens of people have seen. Yeah. It's like, okay, so I get my lights switched off. I don't even really, in my mind, I'm still in that fight. I don't remember that bit when it stopped. But yeah, so it's going all right. So that happens. I'm a blubbering mess for a bit, but I'm running the next day. Cardio, everything else, I felt fine. Yeah. But because of the progress I made from that first fight to that one, worlds apart, absolute worlds apart, performance, everything was just, so I was ready to get back in again. It was one of those things. I was not that fussed about it. I was embarrassed when I saw it. I was embarrassed hearing the commentary and stuff, but I kind of got over that, no problem. My first fight, despite being a better performance, I felt so mortified. I was humiliated. Yeah. But no, and then my more recent fight on Battle Arena, that weight cut, God, that was horrible. Oh my God. So like I said, 6'2", I walk around about 75 kilos. I fought at 66. So to be 6'2" and fight at 66 kgs is not overly sustainable.
Oh God, man.
So on the Thursday, I have after my water load, after like my weight cut and stuff. Thursday evening, I get back from work, get my hair cut, I weigh myself. I'm 71 kilos. The weigh-in's on the Friday. So what I then have to do is I go to a local gym to me called Kraken MMA. And I get in their sauna with my friend Mark Kelly, who's also fought on battler in the various amateur promotions.
Nice.
He helps me in the sauna for like I don't know how many hours it was. In like 4 layers, like 10, 15-minute stints.
Oh, horrendous, man.
I get down to 68 in a bit, I think, I'm not sure. So bear in mind I'm in a bad way at that point. I then go home knowing I have to lose another couple of kilos. I then drive to Northampton in the morning to this, like, I don't know what it was. It was like this weird sort of spa place that my friends went to every now and then. And I shouldn't have driven in the first place. So I'm there, like...
Sounds a bit sketchy.
Oh, it's quite bad. Good thing it was like 7 in the morning, so like no one really was on the roads at that point.
Yeah.
And, so my friend Denzel Chimbondo, who fought on the same show as well, he has helped me cut weight as well. But it must have looked so strange, this lanky white crackhead and this small African man, like, helping me. Like, me just sort of collapsing everywhere and just being a bit, oh, God, it's horrible. And I get there, and do you know Fabian Edwards, a Bellator fighter? He's a big middleweight guy. He's like Birmingham based and stuff. So I sort of see him as I'm going to, like, go for my weigh-ins. And I'm, like, fanboying a bit. But because I'm so dehydrated, I'm like, oh, Fabian, oh, nice to meet you. I'm just like... ghastly crackhead. He must have thought, what on earth is going on here?
Oh man, at least he's done it too, you know. Like he'll have been there. So maybe he didn't think quite as badly as you thought in your mind.
Oh, this is it. And then weigh in on the nose pretty much. I'll go to rehydrate. I'm all good. And on the day it felt great, but this is the fight I'm most embarrassed about, my more recent one. Despite winning,
Okay.
I didn't feel like I performed. I felt like, as much as I was tentative about obviously coming off of the first 2 losses and wanting to really get stuck in, I really wanted to, showcase what I've been putting into this.
Yeah.
And although I got the win, and yes, it was all right, the commentary, as much as it stung a bit, because they were talking about how I didn't have a lot of power in the shots and all this kind of stuff, I kind of agreed with it, because as much as I thought I had that kind of sting and that kind of venom, I could see in myself where I'm... I don't know, too concerned about getting caught, too concerned with getting, I don't know.
Right.
It's a funny one. So despite getting the win, and also when I'm in there, it felt more exciting than it was to watch.
Yeah, of course it did.
Well, this is it. So then afterwards, I'm a bit like, oh, now what?
You going to do another one? It sounds like you are.
Oh, 100%. Like, as soon as... Nice. But this was the really interesting part with lockdown and everything that's really been the best thing for me. So this whole thing of fighter persona and social media and everything else, having come off of a win, the natural reaction is then to chase another fight and get more wins and then all the rest of it. I was prepared to fight again in the May and then again in the June just to get stuck in and get like a positive record and just get all these fights in, all for the wrong reasons. Like, I've still got a lump on my shin now. Like, I literally just fought and I had a horrible weight cut and I'm doing this all for the wrong reasons. Like, I was so ill afterwards. I was so ill. And having this time off to like find me again and find I start podcasting, play my guitar more, have fun, a bit of time away from it because I'm just burning out. Man.
Yeah, I think because people tend to be so into the jiu-jitsu and MMA, it's got like a level of dedication from the people that do it that I haven't seen for like any other sport. And I think John Danaher said that as well. He's just like, the people who do this are absolutely obsessed with it. I think in a way, if you're going to take a positive from this like crazy situation, it is giving people time and space to kind of realize like it's an awesome thing. But I think I've written an article about this as well. Like for the vast majority of people, jiu-jitsu or MMA, it's like a part of a fuller life that you are really, really passionate about, but it's not everything. And actually, I think if you realize that and you accept that, then actually you train better, you enjoy your competitions and stuff a bit more, you enjoy kind of competing against yourself, like trying to be the best you can be, but for the vast majority of people, it's just a hobby that they love. But I mean that in a positive way, not like belittling it. Do you see what I mean?
Oh, 100%. Because I think it should highlight how fragile our lives are and how things can be taken away from us. So, as much as we love the things we do, we should bear in mind that if they were to go away tomorrow, you'd have to keep living. So then it's finding what value it gives you and finding, appreciate it. That's a huge part of it. Appreciating your training partners, appreciating your gym, appreciating the people you're around, because as everyone's more aware now, they could be taken away at a moment's notice.
Yeah. And it's that, and then balancing that with realizing there's more to life as well. And there are other things that you can do that will give you some kind of fulfillment. And of course, you'll miss what you're doing, but it will be there when all this is over for you to get back to. And like you say, you'll appreciate it all the more because it's been taken away from you. I think that's my take on the whole whole situation, I guess. Well, that's how I'm thinking about my training.
I mean, a huge part of all of this stuff as well is the gratitude of the situation, like with the NHS and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's always been there, but now people are starting to acknowledge it. Now they're starting to stop complaining about these things and put it in perspective, because, what it really is the end of the world. This worldwide pandemic is the priority. Everyone's starting to realise that now. It's not just, I had to wait longer than I probably should have to be seen. Yeah, but, someone more in a worse state needed it more. If you can moan about it, there's a good chance you're right now.
Yeah. Man, it's the strangest thing that's happened, like, while I've been alive, that's for sure. Nothing even close. It's so weird.
How are you finding everything with the COVID going on work-wise from a Casca point of view?
Oh, man, I mean, no one can do jiu-jitsu. So, it's going the way that you would expect. I'm kind of in like a holding pattern, but in the same way, I'm taking this time to kind of like think about designing a new collection, thinking about like where I want the business to go, like how can I get it to being my sole source of income, or how can I move it from being a side project that I really love to being like everything that I do, and just how can I get better. And I think especially where, if you have a full-time job as well and you train and you've got this side project too, you can struggle to find time to do, it's about finding the time and dedicating the time to doing the right things, like the things that will give you the biggest bang for your buck. And having more free time is giving me the space to attend to some things that get pushed to the back burner. So in that sense, it's positive. But, people can't train jiu-jitsu, so obviously, like, I don't really mind admitting, like, from a sales perspective, it's not doing as well. But this is an opportunity to build a brand and, like, give value to the community so that when it all does kick back up again, more people know your name. Like, it's an opportunity in itself. It's obviously, like, it's difficult, but it's not impossible to overcome. So, yeah, I'm just taking it day by day at the minute, to be honest. I'm doing as much good stuff as I can, like more writing. Doing things like this podcast is massive. It'll be a huge help, massive opportunity. So thank you very much for having me on.
You're more than welcome, mate.
Yeah.
Casca podcast question mark?
Casca podcast. I would love to do one. I think, I could see it coming in the future. For sure. Again, it's a case of like, okay, when would I do that? How do I fit that around X, Y, Z? But if it's that important, you'll find time to do it. So, yeah, I would love to do one. We'll have to watch this space first and see.
This is it. I mean, the thing is, my initial asking of that would be, because of you doing the blogs in the first place, the podcast would be like a logical step with that to help one to help the other, to explain more and dissect more and then break down what you've just said, that kind of stuff. I mean, if you're going to be that kind of source of information, a source of perspective, I mean, it makes sense to kind of break things down a bit more.
Yeah.
Where did the name Casca come from as well, out of interest?
Oh, okay. So that is, it's pronounced slightly differently, but casca is the Portuguese word for like a skin. So essentially it comes from that. So obviously doing the no-gi where it's quite like skin tight, that kind of thing. got some Portuguese friends, and I ran the name by them, and they liked it. So I wanted to have something that would like pay a little bit of homage to the kind of Brazilian roots of jiu-jitsu. And I just thought it sounded really cool. Honestly, I was just casting around for all kinds of names and did a brainstorm, basically, and that was one of them. Ran it by some people, and they liked it, so I stuck with it.
I was going to say, it's a strong name. I'm curious of your origin with that.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
One thing as well, I was finding with obviously myself included in this, sponsoring people as well, being an upcoming business as well. What inspired that then?
That's just from my own career. I've seen it in all of the places where I've worked. Essentially, like working with influencers is one of the most kind of cost-effective ways of building a brand and getting like more eyes on your brand, because they've built a following that trusts them already. And obviously, you have to pick people that are right for your business and people that you think exemplify the type of like athlete or person or whatever it is in terms of whatever area it's in for a business. But I think social media has just given people so much more ability to reach more people in a more cost-effective way, and I think it's just awesome. When I set out to do it, the other thing was that I was like, I want to build a really good team of people who have essentially like the right attitude, that are trying to help this jiu-jitsu community. And I think some of the other guys that I sponsor as well, they have the same kind of attitude that you do. And finding people that are a good match. And it just seems like the most natural thing in the world to sponsor them. And I'm proud to give them the gear that they used to train in, because I like what they're doing and I like what they do for the community. And that's basically it.
I mean, it's so important, and the thing you touched on there is really significant in this, is community. And this is what's highlighted now with everything going on, that is a community. It's not just, it's your training partners, it's your gym, it's all of this stuff. And having that wanting to give back and wanting to build together is so just underappreciated, I can't help but feel, because people are quite selfish in their natural ways. If they've got X amount of time, they're going to put all this into whatever they want to do. But then it comes to, when push comes to shove, what happens with these places, what happens behind the doors, what happens outside of class times. Like these gyms have got, more than just you. And it's appreciating this kind of side of it.
And, they've got, if you're talking about literally the gym where you do your training and stuff like that, I mean, they've got their overheads and things like that. Life goes on. They still have to pay rent. They still have to do upkeep of, I don't know, their equipment or whatever. I don't know everything that goes into running a gym, but there's a big cost to support them as much as you can as well. Because if you don't, maybe it won't be there when all this blows over, which is it's a crime shame. But I definitely think, at the moment we've got kind of a responsibility to keep paying your memberships, keep supporting small businesses, because those are the ones that are going to really be struggling during this time. And it's pretty, it's kind of obvious, isn't it? And there's a lot of help in place, but from the things that I've read, some people are struggling to access stuff and that kind of thing. So I think the best thing you can do, if you're talking about like gyms and stuff like that, is just like keep paying your membership. I mean, I'm perfectly happy to keep paying my membership because of everything that gym's given me. I know that I'm paying for it already, but it's, in terms of the mental and physical health benefits, in terms of like the friendships that I've made through doing it, the things that I've learned, the coaching and stuff like that. It's, it's awesome. Like, why wouldn't you do that if you can? Everyone's struggling at the minute. So.
Well, this is it. I mean, if you can even get some sort of agreed sum. I mean, the principle is these gyms are more than what the face value of the class you're going to. It's the whole.
Absolutely.
It's a difference between a budget gym and your actual martial arts gym. That's the real outside of it. Like, what does your coach mean to you versus a personal trainer? What does your person? What have they given to you? Like, the people I've trained with, past and present, I'm grateful for everyone who's taught me things, who's spent that time and invested in me. And that's why I'd never speak, negatively of these people, because they've invested their time in the martial art in its own right, and then given that information to me in whatever way, shape or form. And however I've, used that, I'm forever grateful. And then this is where it comes to paying the membership and stuff. I mean, I'm still paying mine, but I'm not saying you have to necessarily put your physical money into it, but you can invest other ways, like your time into it. You can help other people. I mean, prime example of this, what I mean with this, when we're back up and running, you see someone new, a brand new white belt, and you don't know who they are. I want you to go up there and shake their hand and say, welcome to the class, nice to meet you. That kind of thing. Little things like that, giving back to the class, letting people feel more welcome. Because that is the rest of being a team. It's not just the money out your pocket. It's building that team and building that, camaraderie.
Definitely. It's the hardest, being a white belt and stepping into the class for the first time is the hardest thing as well. And it goes on for months, or like your first year, literally you get smashed by everyone the whole time. So anything that can give someone that impetus to keep coming back, and it might be that actually, maybe it depends how you experience it, doesn't it? Because like I actually really enjoyed the challenge of trying to get better every week, and being smashed is a big part of that. So for me, it was like an impetus to overcome that challenge. But for a lot of people, I can imagine, it's super tough to, essentially you're like putting yourself a little bit in harm's way every time, and it's kind of nerve-wracking. But if you're personable to them and you kind of like welcome them and try and, teach bits and pieces or whatever, or give advice and help rather than just like bullying them, then, that will have a knock-on effect. More people, the sport will grow if lots of people do that. It makes sense.
And as well, it keeps them around as well, because ultimately there's always going to be that underlying jiu-jitsu rule of, okay, someone from external martial arts or whatever else, they need to learn how to know what jiu-jitsu does by, tough love and stuff like that. But again, the ultimate thing with this is the initial stepping on the mat is one of the hardest things to do, and come back as well. If you can build up that rapport and build up that kind of, we want you here, we're happy to have you. Because, it's intimidating. If people have resting bitch face, you walk into a place, they look quite scary, they look like they're not interested or don't want you there. But if someone comes up with a big smile and says, oh, nice to meet you, welcome, and, any questions, give me a shout and stuff, it just takes that sting out of it. It gives a bit more, oh, okay. And then afterwards saying, oh, I really enjoyed having you here. Hopefully see you again soon. Little things like that. People really, resonates.
Absolutely. That's, it's super important. It doesn't cost anything to like be a nice person. And like you say, it's a benefit for the gym. It's a benefit for the jiu-jitsu community to have more people that know about jiu-jitsu and enjoy it. Because if that person has a good experience, they'll tell someone else and bring them along. And I definitely think, especially with things like jiu-jitsu and MMA, that happens a lot. Like the whole word of mouth thing, and getting your friends to come along and try it and doing that kind of thing. It happens so often. I can think of 2 or 3 people off the top of my head who, from me talking about it to them, they've at least tried a class, and one of them is super into it. We chat about it every time we see each other now. It's awesome. It's really good to see somebody be so passionate about it. But that's more likely to happen if people have good experiences at classes and they don't just come away, from having the shit beat out of them for an hour and a half. It just makes sense. It's good for jiu-jitsu. It's good for MMA, for people to have good experiences doing it. That's all.
Well, it's good for everyone. I mean, how you then go in the class itself is a different conversation. That's open to the coach's interpretation. But the initial introduction, the initial face value side of things is never. You never regret being kind. You never regret being nice to someone. And again, you must have had this sort of stories from people you train with saying, "Oh, don't go over to that gym, or they're really horrible. Or go there, they're really nice." Like little things like that, and that will put you off or make you want to go somewhere. Even if it's not going to be a major influence, it's definitely going to caveat things and make you think twice.
Definitely. Yeah. What is it that you look for? Let's say you had to start at a new gym, you moved to a new area. Like, what are the key things that you look for when you choose a place to go and train?
That is a good question. Okay, so we'll get a little tick list up with this and now break it down a bit more. So initially, obviously location, how far is it? How clean is it? And what's the story of a gym? Are they a new up-and-coming one started by someone who's just been YouTubing jiu-jitsu? Is it someone who's like a former champion, that kind of thing? Because they're onwards, you kind of get a feel from what you're looking out for. Because well-being is a huge thing. If the place is gammy and not really clean properly, I'm not going to go anywhere near that. Like, I don't care people who say call it a bit wussy and stuff. I don't want, like, gangrene anywhere else. Oh. Yeah, it's one of those ones. I mean, regards of, you need to know what you're going for. This is a big part of this, because if you're going as a hobbyist to just get stuck in, you want somewhere that's, approachable, somewhere you feel like you can ask questions, you feel like, there's a level of progression, but you're not going to be hurt. If you're going to be competitive and you want to go somewhere, you need to find out who is competitive, who trains there, and what you want to get from that session. So I think it's definitely fit for purpose.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
What about your side of those things?
I think you hit the nail on the head for a lot of them. I definitely think I want to go somewhere where I think that there's other good people that will push me to be better. So I want there to be a lot of people that are a lot better than me, and thankfully that is normally what happens. But I think that's the environment that you're in, and like the whole camaraderie thing. That's an important part of it for me. Like, is it a team or is it just a bunch of people that train together? I think the coach is super important. It's like, how important is the development of their students to the coach? Because let's say, for example, you can have a coach who is a really, really top level competitor, but maybe they're not that good at coaching because they're still focused on competing. So I think the most important thing for me is just picking a coach who really kind of like invests in their students, and you can tell that from quite quickly, I think. And that's something for like otherwise BJJ, where I started my whole like jiu-jitsu journey. Like, you can tell that both of the instructors there, so Martin Dell, who's a Nick Brooks black belt, and then Mark Whittington is the black belt under him. Both of them really, really care about the students and their development, and that comes through, and that is what I think that's what gets people to go and stay there. And I think where I've already had that, I'm living in Southampton now, so I don't train on the island as often anymore, so I'm at a different gym now, but it has the same kind of vibe. It's got a really, the team element is there, and the coaching is really high quality. So those are the main things I look for. I look for someone that's a good coach, not necessarily like the most decorated competitor, if you see what I mean.
Definitely, and again, it is a tricky one, because when it becomes competitive, then there's so many more factors as to what sort of thing you're going there for. And if you're gonna, if you want a coach who's obviously, like you said there, like someone who competes, but may not be that coachable, what do you want from that session? Do you want to just get beasted and spar, or do you want to learn certain things? And again, it's fit for purpose and this kind of thing. One thing before we finish up is your opinion on cross training. How do you feel about the whole crayon sort of jiu-jitsu loyalty thing? What's your initial interpretation?
Oh man, it's a hard one because of the whole like camaraderie thing. I think if you're going to do anything, you should speak to your coach if you have that relationship already. I think in a way, like, some people make too big of a deal out of it, because ultimately it's about your development, and you have to go where you think is right for you, and that's the most important thing. However, I do think there's like a level of courtesy that you have to give to the people that you train with, so that they don't turn around and think that they've invested a lot of time and effort into you, and then you're kind of throwing it in the face by just leaving. But I think there's a way to have a sort of rational discussion about it. And ultimately, your coach should want the best for you, and if that's elsewhere, then I think there's a level to which they have to just accept that. So I think that would be my opinion on that. There's a right way of going about it, but ultimately you have to do what's right for you.
I think what you've highlighted there is so significant with all of this stuff, is because when it comes to these things, what you're physically doing necessarily isn't the end of the world. But as long as you've got the respect to talk to your coach and say, do you know what, I'm considering training here as well, not because it's X, Y, and Z, but I feel like I want to get something out of those sessions or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Instead of just sort of sneaking off and then them finding out. because people will quite happily turn around and say, "Oh, it's just that you're being insecure," and try and be defensive. But it doesn't take much just to give them a nod on that bit of respect. So I think at that point onwards, then you've got a lot more weight behind what you're saying. That I respect you as a coach. I like training with you. However, I want to get a session in over here, because I think it'd be better for my development. If any coach at that point then says, "Do you know what? See you later," I mean, that's up to them. But I feel like you're in a pretty strong place.
Yeah, it tells you something about them too, doesn't it? How they react to something like that, and it's a tough one, man, because it is about the trust. But yeah, you need to go where's right for you. Like that's the most important thing. There's not really a lot else to say on that. Like if you do it the right way, and then I certainly would never have if in the future you have the Casca gym, certainly won't have any problem with that kind of thing. Like I don't see the point in making a huge deal out of it. It's not going to change anything. They're still going to go there. They might just not come back to your gym. Do you know what I mean? So
100%. So I've got a couple of FAQs to go through, and then we'll finish up. So
yeah, cool.
Advice to a day one white belt.
Oh, advice to a day one white belt. Turn up and give 100%. Just learn as much as you can. I think one of the key things that helps for me, written an article on it as well, like get a jiu-jitsu journal or something where you write down your thoughts and what you thought went well, what you thought didn't go so well. And if you keep doing that, you'll have something that will direct your training better, so you'll know what you want to work on when you go in there. But day one white belt, just turn up, give 100%, listen, and try your best, and ask questions, ask a lot of questions. I honestly used to think I would annoy my coach with the number of questions I asked, because it would be all the time. But I was so desperate to learn, I thought that would be the way to do it quickest.
Now, final one, this is also for me as well. Dealing with blue belt blues, post promotion, keep your enthusiasm to train.
How do I keep it?
So you've just got your blue belt, and then a lot of people feel like this was their goal, and then what?
Oh God. It's about having the mentality that okay, you've achieved this goal, you can be happy about that, but what's the next goal? Like, don't rest on your laurels and just say, right, that's it. There's so much, a blue belt is still a junior belt. That's the thing. Okay, so I think certainly when I started, you look at the blue belts and they're kind of like, oh my God, they're so good. And then when you get one yourself, like I didn't even know at the time if I felt like I deserved mine. I've got the whole imposter syndrome thing where I was like, am I really good enough to have this? But again, it's just a case of keep turning up. Don't think of getting a blue belt as being the end goal. And if it was the end goal for you, think about what you've gotten out of it and what it's taken for you to get to that point. And are you really ready to say goodbye to it at that point? You've got loads more to learn. Your blue belt is an achievement, but there's a lot more to do. And think about how much better you'll be by the time you get to purple belt. So I just try and put a new goal somewhere that will to a level that will inspire me to keep going, I think. And that's about it for me. That's about it. I've had plateaus, but I wouldn't say that I've had the blue belt blues because I'm not done yet. That's all really.
Perfect. One more to try and keep it not so specific to this, saying advice to someone starting a business, not necessarily jiu-jitsu apparel, but you can't have any competition, no, but
yeah, that's fine. Honestly, I don't mind giving advice or anything like that about anything. So, advice for starting a business. Let me have a think about that. It's a good question. I mean, it's so broad.
Let me keep it more specific then. Advice you would have given yourself before starting Casca.
I think you need the understanding of the market, and I think that's something where I've had to learn on the job a little bit. I think it's super, super important. And that, you know, there's a lot of things that you see like on social media and in general where people say like, you know, you have to be so, you've got to have the passion and that's all you need. You need the passion, but you need it to be backed by, essentially it's kind of like getting data and getting people's opinions on stuff and that kind of thing. And understanding, okay, if I make this thing, who do I think is going to buy it? But then you actually need to go and talk to the people that you think fit that description. That's the key thing that I would say that I wish that I did more of. I didn't do a great deal of like formal market research. I thought, okay, I'll start it really, really small and just see what happens. And I've been lucky in the sense that I've managed to kind of navigate my way through that. But definitely if I had my time again, I would have spent a lot more time not only focusing on making a great product, but also thinking about, okay, when I do make this, who exactly is the person in my mind who I think is going to buy this? I did it on a surface level, but there was definitely more that I could have done. And then actually, second piece of advice on that is just, you know, you can have the best marketing in the world, but if the product is no good, no one's going to pay any attention whatsoever. So I think put your time in. It's not the most exciting bit, but put your time into, if it's, say for example, if it's like a rash guard company or something like that, think about the materials, think about, you know, what someone's going to be using this for. Don't only think about the fun stuff like the design, the logo, things like that. You have to have a technical product that's really, really fit for purpose. And so without that, you know, even if people buy it initially, they won't buy it twice if it's no good. And especially if your market's small, like the jiu-jitsu market, that's super important. It's a repeat business.
I think that's so huge as well. Understanding and also that repeat business side of it, where it comes to word spreads as well. And if your product is good in the gym and holds up, that's going to be mentioned to other people. That's going to encourage that more sort of word of mouth, which is, you know, so invaluable in this kind of market as well. Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, mate. Where can people find you?
Likewise. Sorry?
Where can people find you?
So at Casca Jiu-Jitsu on Instagram and Facebook. You can drop a DM into the Instagram page, or you can email me at info@cascabjj.com. Just make sure you check out the stuff. I'd love to hear from anyone who's bought it or thinking of buying it. Happy to answer any questions, anything like that, or even just to chat. Honestly, it's awesome to be a part of this community. I've really enjoyed it. So, yeah, hit me up.
And this episode is sponsored by Mauler MMA. Use code FCMMA20 at checkout to get 20% off on all Mauler attire and gloves. Thank you again.